welcome to the show. The best around, it just depends if I'm in your town.
Yes, everybody. Welcome back. It is Ruck Talk. What are we? Episode 19. Heavy into 2024, and I'll tell you, it's going great. And I got a couple things that I'm working on because last we spoke, I was in the middle of 75 hard, and I slipped. I was on day I was on day 15 or 16. And I just clocked out like engine zap, so I got to start all over again. So I'm wearing my shirt in memory of what I attempted to do the second time around. The second time around. It's all going to work out the third time, I promise you. Everybody, what's up? It's MJ. I got one heck of an episode for you. I think one of the great things about what I've been doing for 2024 in the effort of just being better and being great. And it's not a resolution. It's just a continuous effort. It's just meeting new people, meeting new friends, and just observing. And as I observe, I'm super social online. And I came across somebody that I met that I friended by sending a message and asking her to come on the show because I loved her message and what she was doing. She goes by the name of At the Fiber Teacher, right? And we're going to get into that in a second. Her real name is, you look at her title, she goes, Mrs. Watts, and you go, Teacher Mrs. Watts, and don't you dare, you better act straight when you come to this page. She's laughing. She hears. That's right. But I'll tell you, the funny thing is, though, the message that she brings to the table makes you think to yourself, like, I should have listened back in ninth grade. Like, I remember when I was in ninth grade, I had a biology teacher. I went to a Catholic school. His name was Brother James. And I didn't like Brother James or his curriculum because he brought in these cadavers of pigs that we needed to dissect, and I tuned out. I was like, sorry, the smell was horrible, blah, 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 not me. But you fast forward to now, and she starts talking about certain things about your flesh suit and being a science teacher. Her slogan is a science teacher. What is it? Everybody, let me introduce Mrs. Shelby Watts, everybody, to the show. How are you?
I'm doing great, and I am a science teacher on a quest to teach you what's going on inside your flesh suit.
Listen, I got to say, I couldn't be more excited to have you on the show because I have been watching for quite some time, and I have been in awe on some of the things that you've been saying, and it's kind of like one of those things like I've been thinking it, but is this really how it works? I went down this path, like I was telling you earlier. My journey to optimal health started some years ago, and it started with, one, I got to start working out. Like I just, it's I got to do it, right? And that's gonna be me being healthy. Well, then a lot of that wasn't good for you, I came to find out, right? Like I did too much of that. So I was like, I'm not going to work out as much. I'm just going to be like total vegan and just eat all plants, and that'll be it. And then I came to find out that wasn't it, right? And then I started saying, well, I got to figure out how, I call it my space suit, you call it your flesh suit, how that works, right? Yeah.
Yep.
So I said, I want to find out how all that works. And when I found you in that, some of your messaging as far as really going inside under the hood and going like, listen, man, if your knee hurts, you're going to find out soon enough that your hip hurts, right? And then your ankle hurts, like the knee bone connected to it all works, right?
Turns out it's all connected.
The biology of it. So I first of all, I want to say thank you for what you've been doing. It's been great. Thank you so much, right? Bringing that to the forefront. I have a question though to start before we get into it. And you live in Utah. How's the weather? You said the weather in Utah is cold?
It's cold. It's sunny today, but it's cold. Not my favorite.
What's cold for you?
I think today it's like 30. It says 38, but
38.
Anything under 50, I'm like, nah, I don't like that.
No. So like cold water immersion and all that stuff, not your thing?
Yeah, no, the whole ice bath thing, I don't need any of that in my life. My siblings used to say I was cold water intolerant, and I will stick to that. Give me a hot tub. Give me a steam room.
maybe one day we'll work on the biology of that. That would be cool. That'd be a kind of cool conversation,
Well, I
right?
did see that you take some of your guests into your ice bath, and I was like, glad I'm not in Atlanta. No, thank you.
By the way, just so you know, when you come to Atlanta,
I
prerequisite,
have to do an ice bath.
you cannot leave the state line without submerging yourself in 40-degree weather
Okay.
at Spa de la Ruck Talk. So we'll get
I
it going.
could do it. If I needed to, I could do it.
Hey, quick question. So real quick, first of all, I always ask people this because I'm always mesmerized by this. The fiber teacher, why did you come up with that tagline?
So I just recently discovered all the amazing benefits of fiber, and as a teacher, I needed to have teacher in my title, and so when I put those together, I got the fiber teacher. Not super glamorous, but I actually gave a lecture a couple weeks ago at Utah Valley University, and my whole thing was on fiber, and the title was Fiber, the most important nutrient that nobody's talking about. So I truly believe that it's something that's kind of been left out of our nutritional education. I don't remember hearing about fiber in any of my education, and so it's something that has just been at the forefront of what I'm talking about because it's just so under talked about.
I'll put you on the spot real quick.
Goodness.
Five benefits of fiber, real quick. Go.
5 benefits of fiber. We have digestion. We have hormone balance. We have satiety. We have this one is, I think science will find very soon. Mood and depression, I think, is highly impacted by our fiber intake. Did I say digestion already?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. But like
Yeah.
constipation, diarrhea, all that.
Yeah.
It actually can also help with gastric reflux. People that have those issues, increasing your fiber intake can also help with that as well.
How does it?
And kind of,
I'm confused. Like hormonal stuff. Seriously, it helps with
Yeah.
that.
totally.
How so? How so?
I have a little visual here. Have you seen anything in your body that looks kind of like this?
It's called
Some people that can't see right now.
my colon.
This is your colon. Yeah,
My
this is your
colon.
colon. So your colon is really fantastic at absorbing things, right? We want it to absorb our nutrients. We want it to absorb our water. However, if your body is high in estrogen, which a lot of us are high in estrogen, what happens is your body says, okay, let's get rid of it. Let's send it to the colon so it can go out with our feces. However, the colon is great at absorbing things. So if you're consuming adequate amounts of fiber, fiber is also great at binding to that estrogen. And if you are consuming that fiber, binds with the estrogen, takes it out. And then you get some good hormone balance there. You don't end up with too much estrogen because the fiber is flushing it out with your feces. But if you are not getting your fiber, colon is great at absorbing things, and you get it reabsorbed back into your body. So
Okay.
even things like hormone balance.
Yeah. Yeah. I could totally see that. But then if you attach that, or are you attaching that to what you're saying? Science will soon find out. Is that also attached to that whole depression thing that you're talking about, possibly?
So that one is actually something that I find super fascinating. So if you look at it, 95% of your serotonin is produced in your intestines. And notice I say in your intestines, not by your intestines.
Okay.
So serotonin is your feel-good, happy drug, right?
Yeah.
And so it's actually produced by the bacteria in your intestines, not by yourself. So what happens is they produce that serotonin, and at this point, science has not actually found the way that serotonin makes its way from your gut up to your brain. The kind of leading research is maybe it's through your vagus nerve, which is the nerve that connects your brain and your gut. But at this point, there's no conclusive evidence as to whether or not that serotonin is making it from your gut to your brain. But I personally think that science will find that link, because how could 95% of your serotonin be made here and it's not going to your brain? Sounds fishy to me. But
So hold on a second. I'm gonna now take me back to. I'm gonna sit in my seat, right,
So
with
many.
the student part. So you're telling me that serotonin, first of all, is not created up in the brain? It's created in the
yeah,
gut.
so
Did
about
I
5%
miss
of it
something
is
of
in
that?
your brain.
No, did I miss that? Seriously, is that a thing?
That's the thing. So 95% of it is by the bacteria in your gut. 5% of it is up in your brain.
Holy smoke! So then, here's one question for you: How does dopamine and serotonin meet up? Like, is there a connection? Do you know of?
Not that I know of. I have not delved too deeply in this. I just
Okay.
know I got in an argument with a dietitian a couple months ago
Yeah.
about that idea that eating more fiber can help with your depression. And she said, well, serotonin doesn't cross the blood-brain barrier, so that's not possible. And I found a couple of papers that were saying, well, it might be able to pass through the vagus nerve. So I need to get a little more educated on my neuroscience there. But yeah, definitely, I think it's something.
Best ways to get fiber, because I remember at one point you also said that you wouldn't do like things like Metamucil, right?
Yeah, totally. So obviously a whole food diet would be the best way to go about that. Eating non-starchy vegetables, nuts, seeds, grains, things like that. I always suggest supplementing to bridge that gap between what you're getting and what you need. If you've seen my videos, I have a couple about picking a good fiber supplement. So a lot of the ones on the market actually have sugar in them.
Yeah.
And that is like what are you doing?
Yeah,
Why are we adding
yeah,
sugar to it?
yeah.
And then I also try to pick one that's convenient as well, that is going to taste good and be something you're going to use. And then also, if you're trying to do this for gut health, you want one that is going to be from diverse sources. So the Metamucil is, I think, just straight psyllium husk. And if you could imagine eating the same thing every day, your gut bacteria doesn't want to eat the same thing every day either. So the diverse sources is the key there also.
You're going to hate me when you hear about my diet. But anyway, okay,
wait. We got to pause here. Because
Here we go.
I have friends that have like seen me in person since I've started doing this. And they say, oh, well, I was at playgroup the other day and my friend goes, well, I left my soda in the car because I knew you would be here and I didn't. And I was like, no, please do not feel any guilt or shame from what I'm talking about, right?
No. I'm just I got you. I mean,
I talk a lot about what we can add in, not what we need to take out. You saw me take a sip of that Coke in that video, right?
Hey, listen,
just like the next person.
Listen, but you're the biology teacher. Come on, man, I gotta be on my P's and Q's. You know what I'm saying?
But I also love you, and I want what's best for you.
I totally get that.
That's my favorite part of teaching,
and which is another reason why I wanted to have you on. So when you said earlier, and here's really what I want to get into, because I love a lot of your dissertation about this stuff. And we can actually, we'll get into this really deep right now, is you said with a lot of with some of the fiber supplementation, you'll find like there's a lot of sugar in the stuff, right? And you're like, whoa, what are we doing, right?
Yep.
Your opinion on the world we live in, as I look around, just both socially, just digitally and around, right? You know, our nation is, we're in a really weird place from a dietary standpoint. And there's been something that has surfaced over the past few years that I've never heard the term, and now I pay a little bit more attention to the term of just insulin resistance and, insulin sensitivity, right? Mm-hmm. One of the key things in achieving optimal health, I would say, right? What's your take on why we are so insulin resistant today? To start.
Yeah, totally. So I think part of it is the processed food industry, right? That's what's available to us. That's what's convenient. That's what's pushed is processed food. And a lot of that causes insulin resistance and a reduction in that insulin sensitivity. But also on top of that, if you look at what carrots looked like thousands of years ago, or what peaches looked like, or what apples looked like, they were not these big sugar bombs that were starchy and full of fruit sugar. They were these small, fibrous plants that had a ton more fiber than what we have today. So even when we think that we're eating healthy and we're eating the things that we need to be eating to be healthy, it's just different from what our ancestors were eating, right? As humans have decided, well, we want things that are going to be the most delicious, the most colorful, the most shelf stable, it has decreased the nutritional value of our food, even whole foods and things that we see as healthy, which can make it really difficult to be healthy, right?
100%. So at the end of the day, you find yourself, and I want to play a clip real quick that'll dive more into this conversation. You start to get into this arena where, like, you got the food industry, and then you have these fruits that are, like you said, ginormous, and you're killing it, and you're saying to yourself, like, what's the deal? Like, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do, but something ain't working, right? Something is not agreeing, right? And you talked about, you had this clip that you did, and I'm going to play it right now, but you talked about this glucose insulin dance, right?
Mhm.
And when I started thinking about it, like it is a very fine line type of dance that you kind of have to do to kind of figure out, we're not all stock cars. I mean, what works for you may not necessarily work for me, but it
Totally.
becomes extremely, extremely difficult. But let's take a listen to what you had to say. Take a listen to this.
You currently have this much blood sugar circulating in your bloodstream. But if you have diabetes, it's only about this much more that you have in your bloodstream.
This smaller one is only about a quarter of this one. So as you can see, the amount of sugar in our blood is very tightly regulated. And it's regulated by a hormone called insulin. Insulin and glucose are kind of in a little dance with each other. When you eat something, whether it has carbs or not, your glucose goes up, which in turn makes your insulin go up. And insulin going up means glucose goes down. The problem comes when we have our glucose too high for too long. See, insulin is kind of like a drug for our body. And the more of it that it uses, the more of it that it needs. So what happens is we get in this back and forth dance of higher glucose, higher insulin, higher glucose, until we end up as diabetics.
So there you go. If you want to control your glucose, really what you need to do is control your insulin.
So really, at the end of the day, it's like if you want to really give somebody a prescription, and you're not even a doctor, I'm not a doctor, but a prescription that could work, like work on that formula, right? But a lot of people have a hard time working on that formula. Why do you think that is? Like just everyday life, judging it, understanding the biology of it, explaining how it works.
I think it becomes this cycle of if you're in. So also what I didn't talk about in that video, but what I have talked about in others is that when your blood sugar is high, you're feeling really good. You feel great. You don't need snacks. You're okay. You have high energy. But what happens is sometimes your insulin can kick in, and it kind of kicks in immediately, especially if you're eating things that don't have fiber in them. And so when your insulin kicks in, you end up with a major drop in that blood sugar. And as soon as you get to the bottom of it, of your blood sugar drop, then you're feeling snacky and craving and you need more energy. And our brains are not stupid. They're smart. They know if I'm down here at the bottom with energy, I need something that's going to get me right back up to the top. And what is that? Carbs, right? So we eat the carbs, and I call it, so it is an insulin glucose dance, but it's also can become an insulin glucose roller coaster. And you end up on this roller coaster that if you are following dietary guidelines like breakfast is the most important meal of the day, eat it immediately when you wake up, you get on that roller coaster early in the day and you do not stop, right? And then even when you are going to bed at night, you have those cravings. And so a lot of it, I think, is our food industry and our even nutritional guidelines telling us you need to eat every 2 hours. You need to eat breakfast as soon as you wake up in the morning. You need to have this balanced breakfast with your toast and your cereal and your juice and your fruit. And I think it's kind of a ploy to get us onto that roller coaster.
A ploy. Don't get me started. Here's a
right?
Don't get me started. Here's the question though. So, but seriously, so explain to me at one point, explain to everybody really at one point, what is happening? You're in this roller coaster mode, right? And it gets to the point where your pancreas just says, peace out. I'm not making any more. You've overused. I'm done. And is that where diabetes begins, or what's the actual biology of what's happening when when diabetes is occurring or has occurred or is occurring, I guess?
So many people actually feel those symptoms of insulin resistance for months, if not years, before they end up with their diabetes diagnosis. And what's happening is your blood sugar is slowly creeping up and up. And the clinical definition of a diabetes diagnosis, you have to hit a certain threshold of your fasting glucose. So that means when you wake up in the morning or when you've been fasting for a couple hours, you have to be at a certain point. And then there's another threshold of you have to be at this point and we'll diagnose you pre-diabetic. So what's really interesting is they actually are tracking your glucose levels. And they are trying to control your glucose levels, when in reality, the issue is your insulin levels. And as we focus on that metric of glucose, the insulin goes to the wayside and your insulin can creep up and up and up. And you can not really fix the issue by just fixing the blood sugar if you're just focusing on the blood sugar. You're not fixing the root issue, which is having higher insulin. So I was kind of reading about it before our video or before our talk, but what can actually happen is you can end up yes, having your pancreas crap out on you, but essentially you can have diabetes and your body's still producing that insulin. So there are different kinds of diabetes. The most prevalent one would be that type 2 diabetes. And that's the one that you would be diagnosed with later in life, usually. And your body is actually producing way too much insulin because you have built up this immunity to that insulin.
So basically so you have this insulin that's being circulated, and what is, like, now you're at the diabetic phase, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you, like, if from a biological standpoint, what's going on in me? I mean, I don't know how deep this question can go for you. It's like, how, like, what is my body trying to do at that point? You know what I mean? Like, I'm producing way too much insulin, and I'm now resistant to it because I can't calm it down. What is my body doing, or what is it trying to do as far as panic mode is concerned, do you think?
Your body's trying to help you to reduce the sugar that you're getting.
Okay.
Oops, sorry, earbud fell out. So if your body is in this constant state of high blood sugar, the whole point of the insulin, right, it's like a key that unlocks your cells and lets the blood sugar in. But if you wake up in the morning and you are immediately getting your blood sugar high, then your body says, oh, we have blood, there's sugar in our blood again. Awesome. Send out some insulin and we'll get that sugar into your cells. Well, at some point, your cells can only take up so much sugar, right? And so then your body says, all right, time to make some fat. So then you start storing that sugar that's just rampant in your blood with fat. And really, your body's just trying to survive. Your body's trying to make use of the energy or the excess energy that you're giving it by increasing the insulin, trying to get it into those cells. But at some point, again, you can't stuff your storage full enough. And that's when you end up with a whole bunch of issues.
So issues, obviously, you start getting into that chronic inflammation. You got, you start gaining weight and everything in between, right? And now you're faced with, all right, cool. I got to fix this, and I got to get. I mean, I've always, and I don't know. I'd love to hear your opinion on this, but I mean, I obviously know that there's two types of diabetes. There's type 1, which is, I think, it's more like people are born with it, or it's genetic of some sort, and then this, or no, maybe.
So essentially, their pancreas no longer is producing the insulin that they need.
Correct. So it's not a necessarily genetic thing, but you're somewhat born with it, or it's
an autoimmune disease. So their immune system is attacking that pancreas.
Correct. However, on the type 2 side, that's more of a manageable, almost, I would say, you could have it, then never have it again type of disease.
I would 100% argue you can reverse and get rid of your type 2 diabetes.
Right. So knowing that, okay, the other thing that you're faced with, and I actually do this all the time. I actually went, and I've been on it for a while. I'm one of those people that said, I went one way, it didn't work. So I went into this carnivore fat diet type of thing for me, and it works for me. But the problem that I was having at one point was, when you're talking about trying to just be optimal with insulin, or not, just be more sensitive than anything else, it's like trying to figure out what to eat. Because it's like, when you really break it down, like, everything breaks down into glucose. So now you're finding yourself I mean, at least everything that is on the shelf or comes to you today breaks into glucose, and now you're back into this glucose insulin dance or roller coaster, right?
Definitely.
So, one of the things that I thought was great was you also started doing this, you started doing this, this post about, like, the glycemic index of foods, right? Mm-hmm. I think that's important. How do you go about, like, for example, I'd love to hear, what do you eat? What do you eat? Like, as a biology teacher, going to the grocery store, what do you eat?
We try to fill our cart with whole foods. We start in the produce section, and I'd say most of our cart is those whole foods, vegetables, fruits, things like that. I like to bake a lot. A little thing I try to do sometimes is, if I'm going to eat baked goods, they're going to be homemade. And you would probably believe, actually, how beneficial that can be. It's like, well, I have to put extra work into it. I don't want a cookie right now because I actually have to make those cookies. But personally, I actually do supplement a lot of my fiber because I'm human. I like to eat Taco Bell. I like to eat the processed food sometimes. But I know if I eat that, I'm going to be hungry, or if I eat that, I'm going to feel like crap, or it's going to spike my blood sugar, or any of those things. And so What I just try to do is I try to mitigate it with that supplementation.
Let's take a listen to some of this, the glycemic post that you posted. It's 2 parts, but here's part 1.
One of these is the biggest scam of the health food industry right now, and the other is a tasty drink that's been around for over 100 years. And I'll let you guess which is which. I'm a human biology teacher on a quest to teach you what's going on inside your flesh suit, so let's jump in. Today, our research is taking us to the beautiful city of Sydney, Australia. It turns out that the University of Sydney is one of the leading glycemic index research centers in the world. And if you're unfamiliar with the glycemic index, let's do a little overview. The glycemic index is a rating system for foods that contain carbohydrates. It shows how quickly that food affects your blood sugar when consumed on its own. And it goes from 1 to 100, with 100 being pure glucose. When it comes to health, we generally want to stick to foods that are lower on the glycemic index, and therefore less likely to spike your blood sugar. So back to this scam. According to the University of Sydney Glycemic Index database, a 12-ounce serving of oat milk has a glycemic index of 49, while a 12-ounce serving of Coke has a glycemic index of 53. Yep, just a 4-point difference between this Coca-Cola and this health drink. But you might be asking, I'm not a diabetic, so why do I care about my blood sugar?
So here's part 2. So we got to go to part 2, right?
Circulating in your
So
blood.
let's go to part
Sorry,
2
yeah.
real quick.
It was all
And-
one piece of TikTok.
Yeah. This is part 2.
Turns out that people that are diagnosed with type 2 diabetes actually end up having symptoms for months or even years before they have their diagnosis. And one of the biggest indicators that type 2 diabetes is imminent is your blood sugar creeping higher and higher because of a condition called insulin resistance. Every time you eat something, your blood sugar goes up. And in order to bring it back down, your pancreas releases insulin and your blood sugar goes back down. However, if you're constantly eating foods that bring your blood sugar up, it brings your insulin up and your blood sugar up, and you end up in a state of constantly elevated blood sugar. So your body makes more insulin. And the thing is, insulin is kind of like a drug for our body. And like an alcohol,
And like alcohol, like you were saying, right? So,
Yeah.
so the foods that you eat, right? And that's where I start getting confused, because the goal is more of a ease of a curve, right?
Yep.
You don't want the crazy.
You
up
don't
and
want the
down.
roller coaster. You want the curve.
So like how do you suggest? Because it's like you'll look at Coke and you'll look at oat milk and you'll say, "Come on, man, I know which one. Like this one's way better." Right? And you're like, holy smoke, they're the same thing.
Yep. So the interesting thing that the glycemic index does not take into account is that when you consume different foods together, it can actually change the overall glycemic load, or how much it affects your blood sugar, of the meal or snack itself. So something I talk about a lot on my page is don't look at what you need to cut out. Look at what you can add in. If you want to have your Doritos, go ahead, have your Doritos, but add some fat and protein to them. Have some cottage cheese and dip that in there. You will not be able to eat an entire bag of Doritos if you're also, maybe you can, if it's your meal, but if you're adding that fat and protein in, you're going to see a big difference in your satiety, as well as your blood sugar and the way that it keeps your blood sugar nice and level, so that half an hour from now, you're not saying, well, now I need another bag of Doritos. Another one would be, if you want a handful of M&Ms, have a handful of nuts or something with fiber, fat, and protein before, and that will decrease your glycemic load and decrease that effect on your blood sugar, which in turn, you're going to feel happier, you're going to feel fuller, you're not going to feel like you're deprived. And for me, that's what really works for me. Like I said, I like my baked goods. My husband picked me up a donut from the grocery store the other day, and I was so happy. But I said, okay, I'm going to wait. He actually picked up a whole box of donuts. And I said, I'm going to wait until after dinner when my blood sugar is kind of moderated by my dinner, and I won't feel like I need to eat 2 or 3 donuts. And I'll have less space for it at that point. And my hormones will be happier because I'm not on that roller coaster, because I've consumed my fiber, fat, and protein first.
It's funny. I actually always eat a steak and then some ice cream. So I guess I've been doing it right.
Great. Enjoy. That's good. So this eat dessert first, not a great deal. When mom said you'll spoil your dinner, she was right.
Right.
You are spoiling your dinner.
Right. So, so basically I get the balance, right? But there are times, though, that people seriously, like, you really can try to get, like, into this whole mode where, the foods that you're consuming and just the processed stuff, and they say that it's good for you, it's really not good for you, and the next thing you know, you're in this crazy thing. And then, obviously, then you bring in technology with these CMG monitors.
CGMs, yeah.
How do you feel about those, by the way?
I think every single person should have one for a period in their life. I was talking to a woman the other day that she said her husband was, I think, diagnosed. So he was diabetic. No, he was pre-diabetic, and he wanted to get a CGM, and his doctor wouldn't write him a prescription, because here in the United States, you may not get a CGM without a prescription unless you go this like back route and go to these websites that want all of your identifying information and all these things. But a lot of people find it's kind of like when you're driving down the road and you see your speed, and it says how fast you're going and then the speed limit right under it. A lot of people find that they are a lot more mindful of their blood sugar spikes when they use these CGMs. And I think it would be a powerful tool for so many people to be able to see, oh, when I eat this, this is what happens. When I eat a bowl of ice cream and sit on the couch, my blood sugar spikes. But if I eat that bowl of ice cream and I go for a half-hour walk, it's way easier on your blood sugar. So I think people would be a lot more mindful of the things that they're doing simply by just seeing what happens with their blood sugar.
You know, it's funny. I'll tell you.
But good luck getting one in the United States.
Yeah, right. Well, if you do, you're going to pay a lot of money. Like you're saying, you're going to pay a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
So
insurance doesn't want you to get that. They want you to get the Metformin. So
100%, which we're going to talk about next. But here's the thing, though. I'll tell you a funny story about the CGM monitors, because I actually agree with you. I think everybody, at least at some point, you need to at least try it. You know, it gives you an immense amount of data that you just will be dumbfounded by. I think what was funny, though, is I think during my stint of trying it, my wife and I were on vacation at one point, and she actually asked me, she said, listen, she goes, why don't you have a cocktail and see what it does? Like, why don't you just have a margarita? Why not, right?
Yeah.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere, right? So I tried it. Sure, I tried it, and wouldn't you know it, the easiest curve you've ever seen. So my wife said, I told you having a margarita is good for you. I said, well, there's another, I can start a whole nother argument there, right? I can start a whole nother argument there. So, you know.
Yeah, was this a fasted margarita or was this a after meal margarita? Like we said, that changes depending on what you're consuming it with, right?
Okay, so question. It was before I ate. It was actually before I ate. So it was a what? What do you think? It was a fasted, so therefore what will happen?
Did you eat 4 hours prior to it?
Probably did. Who knows? I was on vacation. I probably didn't do it right. It's not.
So you probably
it's like,
did, yeah.
Believe me,
You're
this
gonna
study.
have to go do this again for science.
This study's not going to make it into the NIH. Trust me. You know what I'm saying? Not at all.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, though.
It's an interesting thing to look at.
It would be, right? I mean, it would tell, like, you know, tequila is good for you. Like, holy smoke, what that would do for the tequila industry. Like, every lobbyist
That's a great hook.
Hey, listen, every single lobbyist in Washington would be like, hey, guess what? You know, but anyway. So, you know, you brought up a good point, and you mentioned it recently on a post too as well. We talked about metformin, which really, at the end of the day, let's just be honest, man. That's what they want to get you on, right? Like I always think that's the real goal, right?
That's the goal.
However, I don't know, you probably haven't heard of this, and when you get a chance, look it up. There has been conversations, because we do know from insulin resistance, a whole bunch of things start cascading, right? One of the things that cascades is your mitochondrial function, right? It definitely affects your mitochondrial function, which metformin has been shown to obviously improve, right? But as a result of that, I've seen some studies, and there was a guy, I forgot, he comes from, I think it's Harvard, David, I forgot his last name, but anyway, he's a doctor over at Harvard, he's a longevity doctor, and talks about how, I don't know if you've heard of this, how metformin could essentially increase lifespan.
Of course.
Now, it sounds stupid. It sounds stupid, and somebody's paid for that, but is that, like, do you think that's horse, you know what? I'm not going to curse because you're a teacher. I'm not going to curse because you're a teacher.
Thank you. No extra work for you today.
But do you think that there's like anything like that would hold legs?
There are people that it might. People that are on this standard American diet that are not moving and not exercising, sure, it's probably going to increase their lifespan simply because they're not doing what they got to do, right?
Right.
If they made the diet and lifestyle changes, I think their life probably, I mean, this is from the book of Mrs. Watts, but I think their life would probably be a lot longer and better quality if they were to make the lifestyle changes. But turns out a lot of people don't want to make those lifestyle changes. So yeah, your life will be longer if you're on the metformin because your
life was going to be shorter if you weren't on it. So so there is some kind of valid argument that people make when they sell you these drugs, right?
Yep, there you go.
big craze that I'm pretty sure you've heard about is the whole Ozempic thing that's going on. Okay,
Uh-huh.
what's the deal? Like, is that another form? Like, is that like a metformin, or is that like a
So
version of, or
actually,
you know
so
much?
it is different. It is so our bodies make a hormone called GLP-1, and
Yeah.
what that does is it turns off our hunger,
Okay.
essentially.
Okay.
And so it is a mimicker of that GLP-1. And basically, you're just pumping more GLP-1 into your body, and your body says, "Well, we're not hungry anymore." And a lot of people find, yeah, it's super effective for weight loss, but there are side effects. You end up pretty nauseous a lot of the times for a lot of people. Some people, they will come attack me. They'll come onto this and say, well, I felt fine on my GLP or on my Ozempic and on my Wegovy. And I'm like, okay, cool. That's fine. A lot of people don't. If you want an alternative, we can look for an alternative. But a lot of, from what I've found, it can actually increase the number of fat cells that you have. And by increasing those fat cells but making them smaller, you are seeing a loss in that fat. But a lot of people find that, or actually, not a lot of people, the science that I found that within 1 year of getting off of these drugs, you have gained back 2/3 of the weight that you lost. And you're kind of right back to where you started. So this is a solution. You can't see me, but I'm doing that in quotes, that actually puts you on this drug forever. Because once you have lost the weight that you feel like you wanted to lose, you are on what's called a maintenance dose for the rest of your life, or you will gain it back.
So it's you're pretty much a skinny fat person at that point.
Yep,
You know,
yep.
because
You got the skinny fat going on.
that's basically what's happening. Now, once you get off, first of all, how long does it take? Like, why has it been a craze? Is it because it's easy and it happens quickly? Is that what's happening? Is your
Yes,
body like doing this, like dropping this weight fairly quickly?
totally. It drops it really quickly, and a lot of people that get on it, it is a last resort. They say, "I've tried diet, I've tried exercise, I've tried all of these things. This is the last thing I'm going to do." And I was talking to a friend the other day that she was like this close to getting on her Ozempic, and then we started talking. She's like, okay, I'm going to try what you're doing and we'll do that instead. And she's so happy that she has it because she's seen her friends that are on this Ozempic and they just feel sick. They don't feel good.
What do you think happens first? Like, I get people get into that and they get into this really weird storm of just, I mean, it what seems to be healthy becomes somewhat super unhealthy and you get all jacked up. In a situation like this, talking about the insulin resistance, which is something so easy, and we talked about hormones a little bit. Like, what do you think comes first, like the chicken or the egg? Do you have hormonal imbalance, and that causes insulin resistance because of, or is it because you're putting all this food, you have this cascading effect in which everything kind of happens? Like,
Yeah.
could one happen before the other, or?
I would say that it comes from our food and our lifestyle initially. Because if you look at a little baby, they're insulin sensitive, right? But as we get into this point where we are having more processed foods, more carbs, more sugar in our diet, that's when you see the insulin resistance. Generally, I mean, this is kind of this is a generalization. You don't see type 2 diabetic kids, but when you do, it's generally because of their diet, right? That's why it usually comes on later on, that insulin resistance, because of a lifetime of making those dietary and lifestyle choices. So I don't think it's something that is like, well, this is my lot in life. This is just where I was meant to be. But yeah.
I mean, and once again, I keep preaching it, and if it helps for people to just understand how under the hood works, I think it helps too as well, because it's a simple formula. It's a simple formula that if followed, you could just eradicate it. Don't ever have to worry about that stuff ever again, right? Or anything else that will result from
That
it.
stems from it, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it just makes all the sense in the world. I think one of the things that becomes a problem is the fact that people think, and I told somebody this, actually, I had a friend of mine that was on the show last week, Dr. Rattan, and I said, it's crazy, man. Like, people make these drugs, like the pharmacology makes these drugs for us to get hooked on, to say to us, like, listen, you shouldn't have that cookie, but here's a drug that'll help you not have to worry about gaining the weight, so therefore you can have that cookie. Like, that's not the point. I had a friend that got on statins, which I know how you feel about that, but they got on statins. I know. You don't even have to shake your head. I understand.
I'll pray for them.
But he actually got on statins only to continue eating and having his lifestyle remain the same, to look me in the eye and say to me, well, I mean, I'm on statins. That's what Crestor is supposed to do. It's supposed to fix it. Like, that's not how it's supposed to work.
It's not supposed to fix it. It's supposed to keep you at a baseline. Okay.
And essentially, I've heard horror stories of things that statins can do to you.
Oh, yeah. Well, and not the least of those being insulin resistance, right? Long-term usage of statins is linked to that insulin resistance. So now you're on your statins, but you're also on metformin. You're also on insulin. You're also on whatever else thing they want to put you on.
So they officially got you hooked, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and that's basically
standard American diet leads you to standard American medication.
How, so, and once again, the formula is so easy to get out of it. Like, you could just simply like, it's just such a drug. Like, you think, like, somehow or the other, I think Monsanto and the pharmaceutical industry are in bed together. But then again, yes, they are, because I don't know if you knew, but Bayer actually bought Monsanto. So how does a drug company own our food supply? Very good. Let's feel a little bit better about that. But
that's a different episode.
Yeah, totally different episode. But the end maybe could happen right now. But seriously though, like, the formula to this is easy, but people tend to find themselves so confused, because on top of that, you compound that on top of everybody else pushing to them what they should eat. Like, here's a healthy alternative, until, unlike you doing what you do with your family, until you turn the package around and go, I can't pronounce the name of what I'm eating at the back of this packaging, right? So it's like there's no help. So it's like one of those things where trying to give somebody a true north, you know what I mean? Like, balanced diet, like, keep a balance. That's a start. Huh? What is that?
But what even is that? Who knows?
Right?
Like, because you get this government guideline balanced diet, and have you been into a
that ain't it
lately?
That ain't it.
That ain't it.
That ain't it.
Eating low fat, high carb meals. I'm like, you may not have school lunch today when it's French toast and fruit and syrup and all these things, and zero fat, zero protein.
Here's the deal. I have a question for you. How important is, from a biological standpoint, how important is fat to us as human beings, you would say?
What do you want, a number?
No, yeah, whatever. Like, whatever. If very is a number or very is a word,
Yep, very important, because that fat is what's going to help you feel full. If you are eating these low carb baked chips, you're going to need to eat 3 bags of chips to feel the satiety that you would feel if you were eating something that actually had fat. And you want that fat because it helps you to feel satiated, it helps you to feel full. And what is the point of eating if not to help you to feel full? I mean, there is eating for enjoyment, right? But these snacks that have no fat, or this dairy that has no fat, oh my gosh, my son wanted to get some low-fat yogurt today at the grocery store because it's all these marketed towards kids, high color, high sugar. And I was just like, no, we are getting this Greek yogurt that has fat in it, because if you get this low-fat yogurt, you need to eat 6 of them in order to feel the same satiety that you would feel if you were eating this Greek yogurt. Or maybe we'll mix some heavy cream into your low-fat yogurt, but I do not believe in low-fat dairy. So,
aside from,
I don't know if that answers your question.
No, it does. But aside from profitability, right? Why do you think, as a society, because I mean, it does become a profitable situation if you preach, a low-fat, like an agenda such as. I think that's one thing. But why do you think we have become such a anti-fat society? Like, everybody's like low-fat milk, low-fat. Like, do you know how many places I have to go just to get just regular, just raw milk? It just doesn't exist anymore.
Oh, yeah. Well, did you live through the 90s? That was like the 80s and the 90s was just a time of, I think there's maybe one study that looked at fat consumption and obesity. Maybe there wasn't even a study, but I think it really was this issue in the 90s of, well, everything needs to be low fat because fat makes you fat. And as we took out fat, things started to not taste good, right? If you eat something that's low fat,
It's gross.
they have to make it taste good. And in order to make it taste good, they up the sugar, they up the starch. And as our society has gone towards that way, it's been nothing but catastrophic. Taking out fat.
They've gotten to the point where you're right. Like, it doesn't taste good at all. Like, you can't tell me at the end of the day, like, kale is a nutrition. Like, that is the most cardboardish for me. This is just me. I'm not speaking for
You gotta
anybody.
add your garlic salt and your olive oil, and then roast it up. Put some nuts on it. Gotta dress it up.
Okay. I could put a steak on
with fat.
I could put a steak on the grill right from the cow and eat it as is and be happy as I don't know what, right? So it's like one of those things. Like, while we joke about it, it is true. But I tend to wonder, like, why have we become so anti-fat as far as dietary concerns, when really some of the there are studies that show the exact opposite, that obviously fat does not make us, it does the exact opposite because of satiety, right? We're not eating as much, you know?
Well, I think there are some big sugar lobbyists especially in the 90s
100%.
that push that. So another episode.
At one point, I was a huge runner, huge distance runner. Knew quite a bit of, a lot of African runners, a lot of the great Kenyan runners, only to find out their diets are very driven in high fat. A lot of people, which is one of the reasons why they're this big. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Their bodies know how to burn the fuel a little bit more efficiently when they go on runs, versus like I'm going through these highs and lows crashes because I'm eating like all these goos, just trying to get the dirty, get the dirty fuel in my body just to get a quick boost.
Stay up at the top of that roller coaster, right?
Right. Only just to go back down, right? So it's one of those things where it's just like it's just a mess, and just trying to get people to have a better understanding of judging for yourself. Like, yes, you can, like, to your point, if you want to do this, so the balance happens. And that's why people don't, that whole, like, if it's worth doing once, it's worth doing over and over again. And what is it that they say? The Navy SEALs say it all the time, like, moderation's for cowards. No, I mean, moderation actually works, right? It's actually a thing.
There's something to it.
Let me ask you this, though. Another thing that you talk about a lot that I actually think is super important. I know you probably got tons of emails on it because it's a hormonal conversation, but you did a erectile dysfunction thing recently, so you probably got a whole bunch of conversations.
Thousands. I kid you not, thousands of men that
I'm pretty sure younger men too. I'm pretty sure. I don't know, but anyway,
younger, older, all across the board.
So, but that has a lot to do with that. That could be a hormonal thing too, as well. Correct?
Definitely.
And when you talk about hormonal issues, we tend to think about like women more so than men, but men go through it just as much, right? Mm-hmm. What are some indicators that maybe, I'm feeling how I'm feeling, but maybe it's partially hormonal too as well. We figured out, like, okay, is it insulin, based, or is it hormonal based, or does everything happen in a vacuum? Probably not. But how do you pinpoint some of the things that are hormonal?
So insulin is a hormone, right?
Yes.
But I would say that insulin is kind of the king of hormones personally. So my husband, he's a firefighter here in Utah, and a lot of his buddies are getting on testosterone therapy or testosterone replacement therapy. And every time he tells me about another one, I'm like, what are you doing? You are fixing this problem here when there's a bigger problem up here. So we look at this. For those of you, I don't know if you're going to put out a video of this at all, but I have this graph this chart that has insulin at the very top. And as you increase your insulin, it makes a whole cascade of symptoms, of hormonal symptoms and hormonal changes as that insulin increases. And if you can fix the insulin, it can fix your sex hormone binding globulin. It can fix your testosterone and estrogen. It can fix your luteinizing hormone. It can fix your follicular hormone. And I think when we try to fix our hormone imbalances by targeting just one hormone, it can be really dangerous, especially for men that are trying to fix their testosterone. And a lot of men find that as they fix their insulin, they can actually fix their testosterone. And
What do you know about testosterone therapy that like once you get on it, like what happens to the guy? But what do you know about the guy that's on it and they're just on it? What do you stop making testosterone once you're on it?
So I don't know about the implications of getting off of it, but what I do know is that
No, I'm talking about what happens when you
not
stay on it. Like you don't
when you stay on it for a long time.
Yeah.
I have not done a ton of research for that,
Yeah.
but knowing what I know about the body, it's kind of a use it or lose it thing, right? And if your body says, well, now we're getting this synthetic testosterone, maybe we don't need to be making our own. And I think it's just another way to make a lifelong user. And another issue I see with it is it's not super well regulated. A lot of these guys that are getting their testosterone actually just get a vial of it, and their doctor says, here, take this dose. But I cannot tell you how many men I've seen dose on their own. And it's just like, well, my doctor gave me this whole thing. I might as well use what I want to use of it instead of using the prescribed dose. And they end up with the biggest one is probably the anger issues that we've seen in these men that end up dosing a lot.
Yeah, they get real aggressive, and I mean, I get it, man. I get it. At the end of the day, you got the boobs, you got the everything else, and then you start taking this hormone, and all of a sudden things start changing, and you just can't get enough of it. You feel amazing. Like I get it, but the thing about it is, speaking of which, you know what? It's always great when there's a student in the class that wants to teach the biology teacher something. I raise my hand.
Tell me.
This is actually pretty interesting story that I actually dealt with myself. So at one point when I was doing a lot of running, a lot of people didn't realize, and I ran a lot. I've done like a lot of studies like on myself. Just I'm my only study. So I'm, so
sample size of 1.
100%. But I've noticed one of the things that I always notice, and I've read this quite a bit, like when you're doing quite a bit of endurance exercises, like a lot of endurance runners males tend to have lower testosterone levels, right? For a whole bunch of reasons. Just a lot of stress on your body between the cortisol and everything else. So anyway, I remember at one point I had just gotten off a running bench, and I actually went to the doctor and got a test, and I got my hormonal a hormonal panel done. Got my testosterone back, and everything was down. My free and my total were down in the tank, like 281, 300, like embarrassingly low. Yeah. Luckily, I wasn't feeling bad, and my physique didn't speak of low testosterone, which is a thing that could be a kicker for most people too, as well, right?
Totally. Yep.
I read a really interesting study about like just deficiencies that can also cause low testosterone, right? And I read this really interesting study about zinc. Right, the NIH published a study that they did with a group of men. It was a decent sample size that they gave them about 45 micrograms of, milligrams or micrograms of zinc a day for 3 months. Right, and they noticed a difference. I freaked out because I was like, 45, that's a lot. I'm just gonna do like 30 and see what happens. Right, sure enough, so I was just do 15 less. I'll be all right. So I did 30 a day, and I compounded that with copper because if you take too much zinc, your copper gets out of whack. Sure enough, I went from 281. 3 months later, it was like 675.
Dang, man. That's
right?
Awesome. Yep.
So I say that to say, to your point with testosterone, like hormonally, like you could be jacked up for a whole bunch of other reasons. But I do think sometimes too, like if you just kind of, once again, start understanding how under the hood works, right?
Yep.
Because you look at a person like me, I'm going to say to myself, if I have low testosterone, I am not, just because I'm not insulin resistant, so there's something else that's jacking me up.
Totally. Well, and I think figuring out how to kind of hack your body and get your body to create those hormones again is going to be way more powerful than just willy-nilly, here, let's put more of those hormones in, I don't know if you saw my video on yerba mate the other day.
So explain to me what yerba mate is first and foremost before you go any further. Like, what is that? Because you're a big supporter of that, and it helps with weight loss and everything else. So what is it exactly?
Yes, so it is a tea. It's from a plant that is grown in South America. It's been used for hundreds, if not thousands of years for energy as well as metabolism. It's kind of a social drink that they drink down there, but it is just honestly fantastic. And science is finally catching up to how amazing it is. A couple of the studies I've looked at have been about fat burning, and it actually increases the rate at which your body burns fat. One of the more recent ones I saw was that it can increase the amount of GLP-1 that your body makes, which is the Ozempic drug.
Okay.
Drinking this tea can increase
Yeah.
the drug that people are injecting their bodies with. So really cool stuff on the forefront that it's only going to get better, really, I think.
So by drinking this tea, essentially, you're naturally doing what Ozempic does, but Ozempic kind of jacks you up in a more pharma kind of got to keep you locked in kind of way. If there's a way that I would if I were to put it, I'd put it in that kind of sense. You know what
Make you
I'm
a
saying?
lifelong user for sure.
How did you find out about this plant? Like, did you have did something happen for you that you benefited from it, or like how did it come your way that you? Because like literally, like if you go to her feed and you scroll through it, like she talks about it quite a bit. How like I'm trying to tell you, this is what you need to do. So how did you run across it?
So my brother actually introduced it to me. There's a company that makes a fiber and it makes the yerba mate. And we found that when you couple those two things together with intermittent fasting, the results are incredible on your health. So they actually have done a lot of the research on it. And it's a whole system that can just be really powerful for insulin resistance. And so that's why I talk about insulin resistance so much, is because there's this need for it to be talked about, but also there's these products that are absolutely incredible for your overall health.
Intermittent fasting. What do you think about it? Do you think it can help? Or
I think
are
it
you
can
are you a
totally
fan
help.
of it?
Depends on your goals, right? Depends on your goals. For me personally, I'm actually pregnant with my 5th baby right now, so I'm not doing the intermittent fasting of the whole scheme. But I think it can be really powerful for a lot of people in lowering your insulin resistance. The schedule I recommend is 16 hours fasting, 8 hours eating. And so that one is generally pretty doable for a lot of people. So without making them feel restricted, right? Because I talk a lot about not restricting yourself and not making yourself feel like, well, I can't eat that or I can't do that. And 16 hours kind of seems like the sweet spot of I feel like I can eat, but I don't need to binge and I don't need to, it's still cutting your calories down without feeling like you're cutting your calories down, if that makes sense.
So if that's a good sweet spot, like that being a good sweet spot, what do you feel about like the people that try to go? What about these like fad fasts? Like, oh, I just did like a 3-day water fast, man. Like, are those? Is that's got to be your body has got to be like, this is not, or is it? I don't know.
Depends on what you're working with, right? Me personally, I normally sit at 116 pounds. Do you think I should fast? Probably not. If you're sitting at 300 pounds,
Yeah,
maybe that might be something that works for you, because as we know, when you get into eating, your body no longer says, hey, we need to. So when you start eating, your body is burning food for energy. But if you can get into a fasted state, then you're burning your fat for energy. And if you have a lot of fat to throw around, then I think that's a really great way to get rid of that excess body weight that you have. But a lot of people don't want to feel restricted. So these 72-hour fasts, one of my friends actually was just telling me the other day about how she was reading a study about doing a 96-hour fast, and how when you do that, I think it's from maybe Gary Brecka.
Okay.
You've heard of him.
Yep, I have.
One of his things,
Yeah.
about how that actually can reduce the chances that you ever get cancer in your entire life.
Yeah.
When you do these 96-hour fasts, because of just some sort of hormonal shift that happens in your body and the way that you process energy in your body. So I think fasting can be really great. There are a lot of people that say it can't be, but I think it's also a very personal thing as well.
Yeah, I think one of the things that because I wanted to ask you, as far as, you know, from a insulin resistance standpoint, since we spent a lot of time there, would that type of practice help or hurt, you know, making you more lean towards being more sensitive than anything else, you know?
Yeah, it definitely can help. So what you find is that when you wake up in the morning, that is when you're kind of the most insulin sensitive and when your blood sugar is the lowest. And so when you stay in a fasted state and then when you drink the yerba mate on top of that, it tells your body, well, look, now we're getting energy from our fat because we're telling it to burn more fat. And so as you are able, so your insulin, as we said, creeps up and up by small degrees, right? And if you're able to creep that insulin back down by small degrees, by fasting, by doing that yerba mate, it can be really powerful for a lot of people.
I'm curious to hear your thoughts, on this seriously, like, because, people get into, as they try to solve a lot of these problems, balance myself hormonally, or get myself into a more insulin sensitive state. They will go into like these fad type of diets, right? I call them fads. Just depends on how you look at it. How do you feel about like these diets? Like I'm on a diet right now that's extremely low carbohydrate, if any at all, right? So that means that, and I have arguments with friends all the time, like I'm missing something, right? What do you think about that? Because you mentioned something earlier about your microbiome getting the same stuff over and over again. Your gut, it ain't good for it per se. Well, I'm giving it to cow every day. Now the cow's eating the grass. I look at it as
You're
but
eating some grass.
right,
Second degree vegan.
Yeah. So and you've heard the memes and the jokes, but seriously, all jokes aside, like, what do you say to that? Like, your opinion on that? Love to hear it.
I think to every diet there is a psychological side as well as the biological side.
Don't hold back,
And
too.
that
Let's talk about biology.
psychological
I'm just telling you too.
Okay,
Don't
perfect.
hold back.
Yeah,
Okay.
totally.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I think there is definitely a psychological aspect that needs to be addressed with your diet. And if you are feeling like you are restricted on your diet, it's not going to be sustainable. You will go your entire life and say, man, I just want some carbs. And your brain will not be happy. And you get into this kind of cycle of, I feel good because I'm healthy, but I still want that sugar. There's going to be birthday parties. There's going to be drive-throughs, and there's going to be just social events that you will want to eat those carbs, and that's not going to go away. That's just not the world that we live in. And I think any diet needs to be able to address that. My brother actually was keto for a long time, and then he was vegan for a long time, and he just always felt like he was missing something. And like you said, he's just missing that something. And it's not sustainable. So yes, I think these fad diets can work in a short term, but if you feel deprived and you personally feel like your brain is wanting something more, wanting something different, I really don't think that a fad diet is a good way to go.
Yeah, no, I think, and I would agree with you. And it's not necessarily one of those things where it's like you're looking for like the justification from anything. It's just interesting to hear that point of view, because I've always felt like, like I said, you're right. If you're missing something, then something's definitely off. But if you feel satisfied by it, being that, we're not all stock cars, then that works, right? I try not to have like this whole attitude, like it's either this or whatever, not, this is just my 2 cents take on it. But however, sometimes if you limit it, right, like whatever works, a carbohydrate rush for me is I'm at the gym, man, and I'm going hard. I need quick energy, right? Fat ain't going, the peanuts are not going to do it right now, right? I need a Gatorade, not necessarily Gatorade, but I need something quick. So
Goo needs
something, right? So it's one of those things where you wonder to yourself, and there's the age-old conversation as far as, vegan will live longer. No, the people who eat the meat will live longer. And at the end of the day, as long as you're eating whole foods, I can't be mad at that, right? Like,
Yep.
Listen, if you're going to eat the plants, cool. If you're going to eat the meat, cool. As long as you don't eat the Oreos. You know what I mean? Which there was a very interesting study. I know. Go ahead, say it.
It tastes good. It's okay. It's okay to eat your Oreos, but get your fat and fiber and protein first.
Hey, listen, there was also a very interesting study that was just done as far as like eating Oreos and lowering your LDL, how it lowered your LDL. Some crazy. You should look it up.
Funded by Bill Gates again, like the M&Ms and steak.
Probably. You're probably right. Right? It's like,
Let's see who funded this.
Listen, man, I'm going to tell you right now, this is the very reason why Mrs. Watts and I are going to be friends for a long, long time, just based on what she said. She knows the real deal Holyfield on what's going on, right? But if you were to take a step back from a 50 and look at the world from a 50,000 foot altitude, and if you were to, what you're doing right now, like we're talking about all these different things, right? But if you were to give the world like 5 things that you would want them to do every day, that you know that if they did this, that we would be that much better, right? And don't give me the, I mean, I know fiber is one of them, but just give me, if you were to specifically give somebody like your students, I'm going to tell you guys what you need to do every single day, and this will take you into what would that be?
It's not biological, this first one that I think of, but it is love yourself. Do not say anything to yourself that you would not say to your best friend. Do not feel guilty about the things that you eat. Do not feel guilt or shame around who you are. And I think a lot of that lends into having a better diet when you're not feeling guilty about things that you enjoy. So yeah, love yourself. Of course, I have to say fiber. You can't say I can't say fiber. Get your fiber, fat, and protein first.
Fiber, fat,
Eat your fiber.
protein. FFP. There it is. We're going to make T-shirts.
Exactly.
We're going to
The
make T-shirts
F
just
words
like
that are
that.
going to save the world are fiber and fat. But really, the giving your body what it needs before giving your body what it wants will take you very far. Stay off of medication at all costs. Do not try to take the pill. Don't try to take the easy way out, because it's not an easy way out. It really is. You're going to stay at this baseline okay for the rest of your life, and there's ways to feel better. What else? I think kind of just going along with enjoy your life, enjoy your relationships, and your brain's going to like that a lot better than restricting.
Hey, listen, you fell in love with science at a young age, you think? Or you did?
Yeah,
Right?
definitely. Yep. I grew up in California playing in the tide pools and poking around at all the little fishies and being just amazed at the beauty of life. And when you said that you were turned off to biology because you had to dissect this pig, my heart was
God.
just like, oh no. Like, your teacher did not instill in you the beauty and the complexity of life. Like, if he had done that and you had this spark in your
It was a
eye
Catholic
about,
school.
look at this.
It was a Catholic school, okay? Okay, it was a Catholic school.
Okay. But just honestly, that's what I tell my students a lot of the time, is that life is sacred and life is beautiful and it's complex and it's messy, and all of these things are okay. It's okay to be messy because it's beautiful as well.
Hey, the great part about it is it doesn't matter, and I'm pretty sure as a teacher for your students, I don't think it would matter for you if they got it now or if they got it 50 years from now, as long as that was the thing that they got that you imposed on them. You'd be happy that they got it. For me, it's been something that I got later on thinking about it, and just being wowed by it, right? Like, even like little nerd things that I would think about, like, holy smoke, I never knew that you could take the valve from a pig and actually put it in a human being. Like, who would ever know? Like,
It's amazing. It's incredible. Yeah.
Maybe I should pay attention a little bit more, right? So,
but you came to it. It's
yeah, you come around and you appreciate it more and you want to find out more. And then at that point, you want to go, whoa, well, why isn't everybody doing this, right? And you want to spread the word. But falling in love with science as you have, and, with the way that you explained your dance with it, your romantic dance with it, what do you think, or why do you think, with the messages, you and I'm pretty sure a lot of your colleagues that you have on different levels of science, whether it's, the science of health or the science of psychology, whatever it is, why are some people that have great ideas and great theories that could really help us, right, be better? Why do you think it gets silenced? And you, as well as me and everybody else, noticed a lot of that over the past few years.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a lot of money that goes into keeping us fat, sick, and stupid, right? I think, like we said, our food industry is very closely tied with our pharmaceutical industry. And if we're not making people sick, then we can't make them, or if we're not giving people this crap food, then it's hard to make them sick. And so there's a lot of money that goes into making sure that we're not being properly educated and that we're not having, not even being able to live a lifestyle where we could even be healthy or have any chance at being healthy, because I think a lot of it is our government. And maybe that gets in a little bit too much with politics, but there's just a lot of money in it, right? Follow the money and you'll learn a lot.
It's funny. So the question is, how do you, and what's scary is, and not even talking about the politics thing, but it's like, what gets scary is now that you're at this point where you say, okay, cool, they're silencing people. I'm on the other end. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. I'm none of the above. Like, who do I listen to, right? Because in the question is, why are you silencing people is the other question. So it gives somewhat of a distrust to the public as far as like,
Definitely.
who do you trust? You know what I mean? Like if I can't go to my, so you're telling me, not you, but the conversations, you're telling me if I go to my doctor right now and this person tells me that you need to eat a diet that's high in low fat diet, whatever, that I should trust you, right? Is that, and then my whole thing is like, are you telling me that just so I can keep coming back? Are you, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Are you telling me that? So, because surely the goal isn't for me to never step foot in this office again. That's not how this
Exactly
works,
They
right?
have to do what's right for them.
So what do you think we should do? How do you combat what you said that's happening with us, like as far as human beings? Like how do we combat that?
I think it's just such a personal based thing that you kind of have to figure out what's right for you, right? And looking around and seeing people on medication, if that's not right for you, keep searching, keep being curious. A lot of people that I talk to end up on medication because they don't realize that there's alternative. They don't realize that there are other things that they can do. And I think as a teacher, that spark of curiosity of, hey, I can find something better. I can find something that's going to work for me is a really powerful thing that I would hope does not get stamped out of people.
The fiber teacher is spending and spitting a lot of great knowledge. You've got to also have heard some great success stories in the time that you've been doing this. Like somebody has got to, not just your ED, direct message thing, but
Yeah.
what are, like, give me a good story. We don't have enough good news in today's world, right?
Yeah.
Is there a good
Totally.
story that you've heard from just, because doing these videos, there's a reason why you're doing this, and there's a reason why you do it every day. So you must have heard a great story or some good news that has come from it. What's a good one?
So many.
Give me a good one.
All right. So one of my
Friday.
friends, she's been working to reduce her insulin resistance, and she has endometriosis. Are you familiar with that?
No. What is?
So
I've heard it on.
that's okay.
I've heard it on.
That's okay.
I've heard it
So,
on TV before.
Yeah, it's a huge issue that so many women are dealing with. Basically, your endometrial lining, which is the lining of the inside of your uterus, begins to grow that tissue in other parts of your abdominal cavity. And it can be incredibly painful. It can cause a lot of bleeding. It can cause a lot of cramping and just all around issues within a woman's body when she has this endometriosis. And it can cause cycle issues. It can cause infertility, all sorts of things. It's stemmed from, it's exacerbated by having too much estrogen in your system. And you can often end up with too much estrogen when you have too much insulin, right? So when we go back and reduce that insulin resistance, one of my friends, she has been working to reduce that insulin resistance since December. She has endometriosis. Hers is actually attached to her colon. So it's very, very painful for her to go to the bathroom. And when she's on her period, it's very painful. The pharmaceutical solution is they go in and they will actually do an ablation, and they'll clean out that extra tissue. And then they tell you, well, here's your IUD, your intrauterine device. And now you're on an IUD, and that's going to help your symptoms as well. It will kind of make it so you don't have a period.
That's not good, is it? That can't be.
No.
I'm not even.
Let's talk about birth control one day, please.
Yeah,
That is one of
I
my
would love to.
favorites as well.
Like, oh my God,
Love it.
before you continue with that story, I had a friend of mine who was on birth control. She had a stroke, but that's a whole nother conversation. Go ahead.
Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, so what she's found as she's reduced her insulin resistance, she was actually scheduled for an appointment next week to get a surgery scheduled and to have her IUD put in. And after a couple weeks of doing what I'm doing, she has had a period with zero pain. Like
Really?
She does not have pain with her period, and she is feeling so much better. And just
So
that reduction in the insulin and the estrogen has reduced her endometriosis.
So time out for a second. So you're telling me
Yes.
before whatever you guys did, the option to her from Western medicine was giving her something that would stop her period.
Yes, birth control and surgery to remove this tissue.
So hold on a second. But I mean, isn't it agreed that if you don't I don't know, I don't know, I don't have it, but not having it can't be too healthy.
I would definitely argue that if your body is in a state where you are not wanting to or not able to make new babies and new bodies, I would say that is unhealthy. Like, it is human to want sex and to want to be able to make more babies. If your body's not able to do that, something's wrong.
Okay.
And it's probably not that you need birth control to to fix that.
Here's a question for you as far as that's concerned, though. But does that, like, the older you get, obviously that changes, right? Or no? Or is that not supposed to change? Okay.
That does change.
Okay. All right. I mean, I know
But my friend she's 31. She's in ripe childbearing years. So
right. So that should not be happening. Right. So you got stories like that and things like that happen, which says this is the reason I should keep going. Right. And hopefully that person will, share the news and spread the word.
Definitely. And do you have time for another story?
Well, are you kidding me? I love hearing this stuff. Killing me.
So
Go
this
for
other
it.
One of my friends from high school, she's been on it since first week of December. She had PCOS, polycystic ovary syndrome, which again is an issue for many women with their insulin. And as she's been on this, one of her major issues she saw with it was polycystic ovary syndrome increases the amount of testosterone in a woman's body. And when that happens, you can actually end up with facial hair, like not just like one little hair or something like your old aunt had, but like actual facial hair, male patterned facial hair that needs to be shaved. She messaged me the other day and said she couldn't remember the last time that she had to bring a razor to work and shave, because as she's reduced that insulin, she's reduced the estrogen, she's reduced the testosterone, and she now is seeing a reduction in her facial hair. And there are so many women that are dealing with this that say, well, now I'm going to get laser hair removal to get rid of this hair. And it doesn't help because the issue is much deeper. And just stories like that, like she feels like she has her confidence back. She used to bring a little razor to work because sometimes by the end of the day, she needed to shave a little bit more.
Wow.
Her confidence in herself and in her face and the way that she presents to the world is increased because she's been able to reduce her insulin.
I know some guys that probably need to have PC. What is it? PC.
Need some PC. Well, it's interesting.
No, I'm just kidding. Because some of them can't grow a beard.
Listen. High insulin in a woman causes high testosterone, but high insulin in a man causes low testosterone. And what are you going to see when you have that low testosterone?
Hair loss, right?
Less of that facial hair growth. So it's really interesting how insulin can affect men and women differently, but also in similar ways.
I'm currently training right now, and my trainer, she actually has PC. Say it again.
PCOS, polycystic ovary syndrome.
She has that thing, and I told her to follow you, and she was very happy when she started following you. So you might hopefully have another success story.
A PCOS video tomorrow is my goal. I'll work on that after this. But.
And I think it's great. And hopefully you have, I'm pretty sure there's many, I mean, we could probably sit here for a long time and I'm pretty sure you get like your direct message is probably just on fire with, things that you've said and things that you've hipped people to that works. Listen, it goes back to the same thing though. Everything that we seem to be talking about stems in one place, right? And it stems from, we know the environment and everything else, man, but listen, we got too much sugar in our freaking diet, people. It's like, listen, no, if we need to have just a conversation about that, it's not a sexy show. It's just not The Bachelor. Somebody doesn't walk away with the ring and it's a beautiful walk in the sunset, but you'll live, right? And you'll feel healthier so you can walk away in the sunset, maybe in that dress that we want you to wear. It seems like it's a very simple formula. You're laughing, but I couldn't be happier that some of the stories that you see that you brought to the forefront. And what I like about it is, unfortunately, and you could probably agree with this, another show for another time, but we are in such a world where we have this TikTok brain, right? For us to sit down and actually think about all that stuff. Not only do we have the problem, but then we got to sit down and actually think about it for a sustained amount of time, how to fix it. Your messaging comes across as a great time because it's really quick. It's to the point. It's enough where I can digest it. I can digest it and I can say, you know what I mean? And hopefully it's a thread. Like you're just creating threads.
I've had people message me and say, well, why aren't you in medical school? And I'm like, well, first of all, I'd be part of the problem. Or I've had them say, why aren't you writing a book? I'm like, because I don't have the attention span for a book and neither do you. I love making videos, so let's watch the videos.
What do you like, honestly though, you could have gone to medical school. You don't because you've been part of the problem, right? And
also chemistry. I was weeded out in freshman chemistry or else I would be a doctor right now.
Why do you think you were weeded out?
Because I just didn't want to do it. I was like, I love biology. I love helping people. I love learning about how the body works. I don't want to learn about how these atoms are interacting.
Right.
I hate chemistry.
Right.
Like, I love the application of chemistry. I don't like the chemistry itself.
No, but but on the flip side though, if you ended up going to medical school, I think you would have probably been part of the problem just because their
'Cause that's what they
methodology
learn.
is
Yep.
putting Band-Aids on everything.
Yep.
Right?
They're put into the system. And it's interesting because I think there are some doctors that are realizing, hey, I've been taught how to prescribe medicine, not how to heal people. And I think those doctors are few and far between.
Could I ask you a question? I mean, we're 4 years into it, so I might as well ask. Why not? Right? What was your whole take on COVID? Right? And I'm talking about it strictly from as a population, right? Had we had been healthier, could we have dealt with it or sustained it better and sustained less deaths? Your
Definitely.
opinion.
I think if we had had lower issues of heart disease, lower issues of insulin resistance, lower issues of all of those things, I think we would have sustained it better. But that being said, I think it was largely sensationalized. That's coming from a person that was not super affected personally by it. I did not have any family members die or anything.
Yeah.
But like I said, my husband was a firefighter. And so at that time, he was an essential worker. I was a teacher, and we had to be out working. And I was pregnant at the time and got COVID literally twice while pregnant, and I was okay. And I was in good shape. I was a healthy person. And so I think it was largely sensationalized, but the people that it did affect were people that were not healthy going into it. And I think we would have weathered that a lot better as a society if people were healthier.
So how do you, how do you not have, like, how do you have, this is me asking, but just kind of just venting a little bit. Like, how do you have public figures, right, go through a situation where they're on TV, okay, not saying, like, I have yet to ever hear a public figure go, sorry, Mrs. Watts, I don't mean to curse, but I have to say it. Get your ass outside and get some sunlight, right? Like, that's not a thing. It's almost like your opinion. You're a biology teacher. How important is it for us, our species, to get sunlight? How important is it? Just as simple.
So incredibly freaking important.
So why is it like
important.
Why is it like boo boo voo voo or juju just to talk about that shit on national TV? Like, is it not? Is it not cool to say, like, go get some sun?
Well, again, follow the money, right? How much money are these companies getting from sunscreen and sunscreen use? And then how much money are we getting from vitamin D supplements because people aren't going outside? And how much money is really being thrown around here? And I think when you say these inflammatory things, I mean, look at Donald Trump. If you say something that's inflammatory or against the mainstream media or against the things that the money system is trying to get you to say, you get canceled. So yeah, no political figure or public figure is going to say anything contrary to that because their hands are kind of tied because their whole livelihood is buying into the system of the money train.
And then we're stuck on with the back trying to stay hard to kill, you know, because I mean, seriously, it's like I'm in the cesspool of seriously, I'm in the cesspool of stuff that it's just like, whoa, right? Like, the guy won't get up there on the podium in front of the entire free world and say, ladies and gentlemen, please go outside, soak in the sun for 15 minutes. That's all he's got to say, right?
That's it.
And that line that took every bit but 10 seconds to say will destroy an industry. I get it. But we'll be a healthier population, and we won't have to deal with all this stuff, right? You can't say to yourself.
It's there's profit in healthy people.
Correct. I understand that. But you cannot say to yourself as you watch, like, we are a weak, dying species right now, right? So I say, and I could go on to this rant forever, and I mean, listen, I just want to say I appreciate what you're doing. Please don't stop. Please don't get silent. Get more and more boisterous. If there are platforms like us.
I started this September 21st, and I'm not going anywhere. I'm under 200 days still.
Wait, hold on a second. Are you serious? You just started this?
100%. I just started it September 21st.
Wait, okay, so another thing that I love talking about is the drive and so what was the deciding factor? I'm in, all in. What made you decide?
So freaking miserable in my current job. I was teaching for the same district I was taught for, and I love my district. I love the people I work for, but I was working online. All my students were just names across the page, and I just felt like I wasn't connecting. And my brother's been trying to get me to do this for a while, and he's like, "You're a teacher. You have such great insights. You could be really, really awesome." And finally, I said, "I can do that, and I can do it better than anyone else has, and I'm gonna freaking do it. I'm gonna jump in and do it and do the best I can." And it's been, seriously, I feel like I've changed a lot of lives. I've helped a lot of people, and it's been so beautiful, so rewarding, and so beautiful to help so many people and to use my knowledge and my skills to be able to do that.
Give me some quick sneak peeks on what's to come on the Instagram. What story? What topics are we working on?
Definitely PCOS and endometriosis. Those are kind of at the forefront right now. I have a little series going right now because I'm pregnant, so I'm doing week by week what's happening with baby.
How far along are you?
I am currently 21 weeks, but in my series I'm only at week 5. You would not believe the number of women who have messaged me and said, well, this, and this, could I be pregnant? Or just have asked me about their fertility. And that's another one of my soapbox topics, that sex education in this country is abysmal. And so being able to talk about that online, and as not an online teacher, not a public school teacher, that was also the draw of this, was I can teach about whatever the heck I want to teach about because I'm no longer a public school teacher.
We need to have Mrs. Watts in for we need to come up with a segment called the classroom. We're going to call it the classroom every month and just do a check-in. Perfect. Because the fertility issue, that's a whole nother question. I mean, also another thing that could deal with, we could talk about insulin resistant with it, but here's the question I have though, like real quick on that. What I'm wondering is, why are so many younger kids so infertile these days? I joke about it. I'm going to joke about it. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm 50. If I touch my wife right now, like we're on like hiatus right now, because if I look at her wrong, boom, here comes another one, right? I mean, and it's literally like
look at her right. Look at her right. This is what your body is.
No. I've looked. Yeah, it's right, but for me, it's so wrong. It's so wrong. Like that's wrong. That's wrong. But you know what I'm saying? Like,
I'm so happy for you.
Jokingly, like, you know, because I remember I think our last our son, we had a baby 3 years ago, and I think the nurse said like, yeah, girl, you got a whole bunch of sacks in there for a couple more. I don't know what the term was, right? But it got me to thinking, like, seriously, I joke about it, but it got me to thinking, like, why is a young lady at the age of 31 doing in vitro, right? Like, what is that all about?
Well, it's definitely a combination of factors. Again, I have to say insulin resistance. 40% of Americans are insulin resistant, and that messes with your infertility. And also, I think birth control is a major issue, and they will tell you being on hormonal birth control doesn't mess up your fertility, but it's like, okay, the proof is in the pudding. Let's look at all these young girls that have been on birth control since they were 14, 15 years old trying to have babies. And oh, look, science needs to help them. Medicine needs to help them. Does it really? Or is it this cascade that they've been on that their body doesn't even know how to ovulate? Their bodies started ovulating at age 12 maybe, stopped ovulating at age 15. Now they're 31 trying to get pregnant. I don't know how that's going to go for you. So that is, I think, a huge issue, is the birth control issue, as well as insulin resistance.
Once again, it goes into this. It goes into this ideology that I tend to just get pissed off about, because your point is, you know, you're not giving your body a chance to be fertile and everything else, but we are led to believe or led to lead our entire health, you know, the life of our health into a group of people, right, that essentially will give us advice, right, that doesn't work for us, right? And the simplicity of some of the things that you say versus the complexity of what they're trying to do to jack you up, like, it really boggles my mind. You know, the fact that you would say, listen, man, you want to be healthy, you want to lose weight, fucking, excuse my language, drop the sugar, right? Just do it. right? If you do that, I'll bet everything I got. I had a friend of mine. Here's a success story for you. And this wasn't even this was a fluke success story. But a buddy of mine broke up with his girlfriend. She used to cook, and she cooked really good, right? He couldn't cook. He didn't know how to cook, so he went out and he got one of those air fryers, those Ninja Foodie things, right? He goes, man, and at the time he was about 325 pounds. So within 8 months, he dropped a ton of weight, and he thought he was sick. He thought something was wrong, and he said it was a goner. He went from like 320. It was about a year. He went from 325 pounds to close to 200. Right, he lost about close to 100 pounds. Right.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
He said when we broke up, I bought a Ninja Foodie, and I didn't know what else to cook, so all I did was cook meat and eggs, and I just ate that for 8 months. I swear, that's all he ate for 8 months. He went to the doctor.
Keto.
Yes, so he went to the doctor because he was nervous because his kids were like, "Dad, you're looking really like ill. Like you need to get that checked out, right?" He went to the doctor. The doctor took him off of his blood pressure medication and his Metformin. Actually, guess what? He got taken off of that, right?
Yeah. It's,
and then
like I said, totally reversible.
Right. And then she told him, the doctor said, I would incorporate some, vegetables and greens into that diet. And I told him, I was like, I wouldn't do a dang thing different than what you're doing. But, and he still lost weight today. Like, if you see him, you'd be like, holy smoke, this is crazy. Yeah.
Who is
right?
that guy? Yeah.
But it's like, if we know that, right, here's a way to fix our health system. I'm going to push for this. I'm going to lobby for this, right? We should pay our doctors to keep us healthy. So as long as we're healthy, we pay them. If we're sick, they don't get paid at all. They make us sick. Yeah. They make us sick. They got to take care of us for free.
Well, I say that all the time. It's not a healthcare system. It's a sick care system.
It is a sick care system.
There is no healthcare system. It's a sick care system.
You know that for a fact when, I had a family member at one point have open heart surgery. And right out of open heart surgery, the first meal of the day was fried chicken. No, seriously, it was not a joke. They brought him fried chicken with gravy and everything else, right? In the hospital.
And said, see you next week.
And said, see you next week. We appreciate the business. Thank you very much. So I say all of that to say, like, please, like, don't stop any of this stuff. I'm looking forward to hearing and seeing more stuff from you and having you on. We're gonna do some really cool. I love to do some really cool things, and some more one-on-ones. Last minute things for you, like how can people find you? If there's any other ways, and what stuff do you have coming up? Please tell us.
Yes. I am, like we said, the Fiber Teacher on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook. You can also email me at thefiberteacher@gmail.com. I love to chat. I love to actually talk to people. That's why I'm doing this. So please don't hesitate to reach out unless you want to reach out about the ED video and still want your pills, because I've had hundreds of guys that have reached out but actually still want their pills. So don't touch me if you want pills. But yeah, go to any of those places.
That was a really good thing for you, huh? That that is a really problem for a lot of people.
It is a huge problem for a lot of people. And something I didn't mention was that I think a lot of it is masturbation and desensitization through masturbation. But that is, again, another episode that I think a lot of these people are actually dealing with.
Yeah, you're probably right.
So there's that.
Shelby Watts, you are an amazing human being and a great science teacher. And I'm going to pass that on to I'm going to call my science teacher, my biology teacher, and yell at him and go, why couldn't you do some of the stuff she was doing?
He was doing the best he could. Don't yell at him. Be nice. Like I said, be kind. Be kind to yourself, then be kind to
I'm going to be kind. It's going to be a nice kind of kind. You know what I mean? I'm going to be like, I should.
Send him my page and say, go learn from this girl.
I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to send him a pig cadaver and go, I'm sorry, I should have listened.
You should have seen the beauty of it.
Everybody, thank you so much for listening. And I'm telling you, I promise I'm going to have Shelby back. Well, we got to give her a big, there you go. There you go. Applause for you. That's great. We're definitely going to have her back on, and we're going to do some more cool things. That's it. Ruck Talk 19. This was a good one. This was pretty deep. Yeah. And I was
so excited to hear it.
I was too scared to go down. There's so many rabbit holes that we could have gone down. We'd have been on here for 6 hours, I swear to God.
so many. There's so much material here. I was looking at these questions. I'm like, ain't no way we're gonna cover all that, dude.
No, I know. I just know those are ones to come. It's just stuff that comes to my mind, you know. And like I said,
love it.
it's wherever the conversation goes. That's what a Ruck Talk is all about, and that's why we continue to do it.
So how long have you been doing it?
Ruck Talk was an idea about a year ago, right? It only came to fruition. Same time, it came to fruition in September. I kind of brought it. Yeah, I brought it to fruition because I couldn't find a name for it, and I started doing a lot of rucking and a lot of just weight vesting around that time, and I always wanted to know what ruck meant. And when I looked it up, it just meant a group of ordinary people. So I was like, why don't I have just a group of ordinary people having a talk? And I was like, it's Ruck Talk. There it is, right? So, and it's also part of my archives to honestly just like you. Like, I think we're all trying to do the same thing. We're all trying to make ourselves better. We can see, we all see collectively the same finish line. And some of us do see a path, the right path to get there. So the more we amplify that and the more we amplify our voice, the less we become silent. Now, I'm not a professional, but I tend to want to stand behind the professionals and the experts like yourself. And, I don't need the fancy, don't give me the fancy degree. Just show me that you're making a difference and you're getting stuff done, right?
I love that you say that. Love it so much.
That's all it is. Everybody, thanks for checking out Ruck Talk 19. Shelby Watts. This one's going to go down in the history books, y'all. Until next time, we'll catch you. It's a good one.
To the show, the best around, it just depends if I'm in your town. Yeah.